Hello, welcome to my VRChat avatar to VRM avatar conversion tutorial. This video is meant to be a relatively quick and painless walkthrough of how to get your VRChat avatar into the VRM format so that you can use it with VSeeFace, Luppet, LIV, or other VRM capable programs, apps, and games. This video is kind of intended for people who have basic knowledge of how to upload a VRChat avatar and that have Unity installed on their computer already. The current version of Unity that we're using for this is the same as VRChat 2019.4.31 F1. However, the VRM format is compatible with a wide variety of versions of Unity. The avatar I will be using for this is the tsukat. It is a free avatar, so anybody can download the exact project I've got going on here pretty much and follow along. My project has the VRChat SDK in it and the Dynamic Bone SDK and the latest version of the free version of Poyomi. Okay? You will also need UniVRM, which will be linked in the description. Both of these will be linked in the description of the video. Alright, let's get started. First of all, I've already got the tsukat scene open here. If it's not open for you, go ahead and navigate to the tsukat scene and just open it up. It's possible, depending on how you have Poyomi installed, that some of the shaders might be missing or configured incorrectly. It's okay because in the final product we won't be using Poyomi, so if materials are pink in here, just shift click them and choose a shader that you like. The final product, it won't really matter later on. Alright? Now we're going to import the VRM SDK. So I've got that on my desktop here because I already downloaded it. And in case you're confused, the link for this is in the description. Just double click on it. You should have 3 categories here: Uni, GLTF, VRM, and VRM shaders if you have never previously installed this. So just make sure you're getting all that stuff and then hit import. I might fast forward through this part a little bit. Okay, cool. When you've installed the VRM SDK, you should have a little window up here, or a tab rather, in between UniGLTF and window. It'll say VRM. If it's missing, that means it didn't install correctly and we've got a little problem. So just go through that again or start with a fresh project. You should also have a VRM folder down here, a VRM shader, and a UniGLTF folder. Alright, once you've done all that, let's make a new scene. File, save as. We're going to call this the VRM cat scene. And it'll be a copy of this scene since we did save as. And just double click it to make sure you're in the scene. Now that we're in the scene, let's remove the characters we're not going to use because there's a couple extra characters in here. So I'm just going to delete all these guys. You can delete them any way you wish. Click on the root in the hierarchy or just drag over them, whatever. After we've deleted all those characters, the next thing we're going to do is make sure this character is in the center of the scene and that their position and rotation data are all 0. This is really important so that your character doesn't end up scuffed later on. Now that their position and rotation data are 0, you want to go to VRM, export to VRM, make T-pose, and because this character was set up in kind of a particular way, you're actually going to have to select this more than once. So close out, left click on the top of the character in the hierarchy, and go to VRM, export to VRM. You should have all these metadata options. We're making the base of the avatar that we're actually going to re-import into Unity later, so that it gives us a bunch of assets and components automatically. So just make it tsukat base. You can title this whatever you want. This is the internal name of the character, not the name of the file that gets saved on your computer. Version, whatever you want. Author, I suggest putting whoever made the avatar. And go ahead and export that. Do not export it into your project. Instead, export it somewhere else. I'm going to be exporting it to my desktop. And we'll call it the tsukat base. Save. And depending on how complicated your character is, that might take a few minutes. So just give it a moment to think. When it's done, that window will go away. Now let's navigate to our desktop. I've got the base VRM here. Now what we want to do is we want to make a new folder. So create folder. And I'm going to call my folder VRM bases. Let's go in there. And we're going to drag the VRM that we just made back in here. And when we do that, Unity is actually going to create a bunch of folders and components and assets for us of the character that is going to save a ton of time. Cool, look at that. Minimize this. Now we can actually hide this character and bring in the new version. This is the version that we'll be working on to actually export later as our final product. Notice how it's got if you click on it right here at the top, it's already got the VRM meta, VRM humanoid, VRM look at head. All these things have automatically been assigned to the character because of the way we exported it and brought it back in. Now, the most important thing we got to do is go to the blend shapes. And if we double click on that, it'll bring us here. Be VRM bases tsukat base.blendshapes. And if you click on the blendshape.asset here, it'll bring you to the Blendshape clips. These are your basic emotes and visemes. So your character will have the speaking blend shapes, just like vrchat, but they're a little bit more limited with the VRM format. So you're mainly going to have the vowels. And we just click on the vowel and we turn it on. And you'll get a preview of what that looks like down here. And you just do that for all the vowels. If your character doesn't have complete visemes, or if some of them are weird, just fill them out the best that you can. You can technically configure these blend shape clips however you like. Blink is meant for both eyes, so look for a blend shape that has both. If you don't have a blend shape that's both blinks, you can do like blink left and blink right together. Either way is fine. Joy is typically an emote that, at least in VSeeFace, you trigger manually. So it's kind of the name convention of this blend shape clip is a little strange, but I suggest making it a fun emote like a blush or a blep or something else that you might want to trigger manually. So like this, for example, it's kind of a silly emote. Angry is in a similar fashion. You can actually set up VSeeFace to trigger this based on if you kind of angle your eyebrows in real life with your webcam. Sorrow can go to sad. Just whatever blend shape is the equivalent of what you think would go in the blend shape clip here, because obviously different characters are going to have different blend shapes. Fun gets triggered when you smile by default in VSeeFace, so I like to put a really simple smile here if it exists. So like happy works. Look up, look down, look left, and look right are occasionally found on some characters, but not all characters. If you have blend shapes for these, you can turn them on, but they're not really necessary. You don't need them. Blink L and Blink R are self-explanatory. Blink left and blink right. These, if you set up your VRM app of choice to track your eyes, basically, or your eyelids at least, they will individually blink. You can also choose to make new blend shape clips if you want to get a little bit more advanced. So, for example, there is a blend shape for cheeks, but we haven't assigned it to any expression. So we could create a Blendshape clip called cheeks. And you would just name it right here. Later in another video, I might show off some more advanced stuff about Blendshape clips where these are case sensitive, but if you're just making your own for manually triggered expressions, they're not really case sensitive. And then for cheeks, you just go to body and you turn on the cheeks Blendshape. Let's make that a little bigger so we can see the difference. It's kind of a subtle Blendshape, but it could be silly. You could even make it sillier by adding another shape to it a little bit. There we go. There's the basic Blendshape clips. Now, if we exported the avatar right now, it would demonstrate basic viseme capability in VSeeFace. But we're not done yet. There's more to do. So let's go back to the hierarchy of the character. The next thing we have to do is we have to put on spring bones. So a VRChat character will have dynamic bones, or in the future, the physic bones that VRChat is working on. However, VRM characters are not compatible with dynamic bones, so you have to use spring bones. This character has dynamics on their jacket, their ears, and their tail. So we need to add secondary. We have to add a spring bone for all of those things. If you do spring bones, make sure you put them on the secondary object that is underneath your character in the hierarchy. This object gets created automatically when we bring the character into Unity and then into the scene. If you don't have it, that means that we missed a step, okay? So secondary right here, and in fact, there'll be an example spring bone already set up here with no root. This means that the spring bone isn't actually hooked up to anything. Let's start by making this spring bone hook up to the jacket. So I know that the jacket already has 4 parts, and I'll show you how I know that by bringing the VRChat character back and putting him alongside our character and expanding them in the hierarchy here. The coat has a few parts, and these 4 parts right here all have dynamics. Spring bones and dynamic bones, it's difficult to make them look exactly the same, but for most characters, spring bones are good enough. So we're just going to make 1 spring bone component for the jacket and give it 4 roots, which I've already done right here. I'm going to expand the armature and click drag this stuff into there. Easy peasy. You can check your work by pressing the play button. And go to scene at the top here next to game. Then click on the top of your character in the hierarchy. And move them around a little bit, and the jacket should move around. Woo! Now, obviously, if you are a VTuber and your character is focused on the head, this may never get seen, but I'm trying to be thorough because you never know where you're going to use this character. Turn off the play button. If you do not turn off the play button and you keep trying to follow along with this video, you're going to run into problems. So make sure you turn it off. All right, and let's do the rest of the character. So go back to secondary. Let's add a different spring bone component for the ears and the tail because we might want to give them different physic values. And then let's expand the character a little bit here. So I know that the original character, their dynamic starts on root tail 001. So we're going to do the same thing on here. Just going to go to secondary and drag root. Sorry about that. Go to secondary, change the root size to 1. That way you actually have something to drag it to. Then drag root tail to here. Boom. And you should see some yellow spheres appear. They're kind of small, but we can change the size of those spheres later. And then we have to do the ears. So the ears are usually located on the head. And I'm clicking on the VRChat character right now as a reference. It looks like ear left base and ear right base are where the dynamics are. So we're just going to emulate that by expanding our character a little bit, our VRM character. As soon as I find the head, neck, head, ear left and right base. Okay. Go to secondary, set root to 2, and then just click drag those over. Bam. Isn't that cool? And we can test that out with the play button again. Click play, go to scene, and click the top of your character. Just drag them around a little bit. That's with the default Springbone values. You can change the values to if you want to make the ears like more bouncy or less bouncy or more stiff or whatever. You can change the values very similar to working with dynamic bones. But that is all the dynamics on the character. Now, we can also add colliders to the hands. And the way we would do that is by going down the shoulder, the left arm, the left elbow, left wrist, add a component. And it's called a VRM Springbone Collider Group. Let's move our vrchat character away a little bit so I have a little bit more space to think. There we go. Second, we go back to the left wrist. We're gonna try a couple values here. So the offset, the size determines how many spheres there are, and the offset determines the position of the spheres relative to what you attach the component to. So let's make a really small offset. And then let's reduce the size of these spheres a little bit. You can also manually move the spheres. So like I kind of just want them on the hands. Maybe we'll make them a little smaller. A little bigger. Now in theory, if you were using your character in an application that lets you move the hands around your head and stuff, you could touch your ears. But we're not done yet. Let's copy this component to the other hand. So expand the right shoulder, right arm, right elbow, right wrist. Paste component as new. You're going to have to make one of these. You're going to have to reverse the value here a little bit on one of these. I think this one. Just take the minus sign off. Bam. And that should be a reflection of the other hand. Perfect. Then go back to secondary. And you're going to have to add a collider group. You can guess how this is going to go. Luckily, if you only have one VRM character in the scene, this is really easy. Just set the collider group size to 2 and fill in the blanks. Left wrist, right wrist. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. In case it's not obvious, in order to bring up that window, I'm clicking on the little circle on the far right here. That makes it really easy. Cool. Now, if you're able to move your hands to where your ears are, or your tail, or the jacket, it'll brush away a little bit. And that's how you do the spring bones. Next, we're gonna mess with the shading a little bit. The character currently, if you export and re-import the character, it's probably going to have Unity Standard on it. So let's take a look at that. Go to the tsukat base, then go to body. On your right side, you should have the material for your body. It's gonna say standard. Let's change that to VRM. VRM format avatars are only compatible with VRM shaders and Unity Standard shader. So if you try to use Poyomi or anything else like that, you're going to run into problems later when you try to use the character and other stuff, or even when you try to export. The VRM shader doesn't give you as many options as Poyomi does, but it's still pretty good. I suggest changing the shade color to a slightly different color depending on your character. So like this, for example, and then like maybe brighten it. By default, I think this shader is meant for human characters. So it kind of depends on what kind of character you have in here. You might have to experiment a little bit. It's also compatible with an emission map. So you can see the emissions on this character are in the eyes, but it already came out the way that we expected it to, so we don't really need to change anything there. If your character has rim or outline, you can turn those on too. And we can also set the clothing to be VRM as well. Oops, I clicked the wrong one. VRM, not VRM10. Okay, let's see if we can mess with this a little bit, because the shade color is probably... Let's do this. There we go. Very cool. Alright, we are pretty much there. There's one more thing I want to show you before we export this character, and it's kind of optional. If you're just making characters for yourself, you don't really need to do this, but if you're making them to distribute or for a friend or something, you might want to do this. Get the camera in your scene and rotate it so it's facing the character. And you can actually use the VRM SDK at the base of your character. Click on the base at the top here. Take a screenshot. And you can save this in... We could just save this in the project. We'll call it the tsukat thumbnail. Bam. Now, whenever you load this character inside of an app or VSeeFace or, you know, whatever other thing, they'll have this little picture to show off the character. And you could theoretically, like, select any other image and put it there. So if you have art or a render of the character, you could put it in that slot by using the little select button. You can also drag a picture into there. Yeah. So that's a little extra thing you can do. Entirely optional, but it might make it easier to manage and pan through your characters if you have a lot of VRM characters. Okay, so now we're on to the final step. Make sure you're clicked at the top here, tsukat base. Then go to VRM, export to VRM. This one, we'll call it like tsukat VRM. You can name it whatever. And then the version number is basically how many times you ran through this. I'm just gonna call it 1. Remember, this is the metadata that is inside of the character. It is not the name of the character on your computer's hard drive. That can get a little confusing because when you're looking for the character inside of an app, it'll show this name, not the name that you saved the literal file as. Now let's export it. I'm just gonna put this on my desktop. We'll call it tsukat VRM avatar 1. Save. It'll take a few minutes depending on how complicated your character is. This character is pretty simple, so it's already done. Now let's bring up VSeeFace. I've already got like VSeeFace. If it's your first time launching, it'll give you like a little tutorial and stuff, but I've already kind of got it prepared ahead of time. I'm going to add an avatar. And I have a lot of avatars. Hoo boy. But let's go to my desktop. And let's choose tsukat VRM avatar 1.vrm. And depending on how... Oh, it loaded instantly. I was about to say, sometimes this could take a while. And then just hit start. And there we go. You can use reset position. I kind of wasn't looking straight ahead when it came through, but when I smile and when I blink my eyes, it blinks. Now I'm wearing glasses, so even with glasses, I think that the eye blinks and all that are pretty good. When I smile, the character smiles. And if you don't like the auto smile or the auto angry like this, you can actually turn that kind of stuff off. With this simple expression detection, you could just turn it off and then it won't happen anymore. If you want to manually trigger expressions, you can set them up with hotkeys in here. Now, any Blendshape clip, if you remember the Blendshape clips from earlier, will appear in this list. So remember cheeks? I'm just gonna set cheeks to the minus key. Hit OK. And then when I hit minus, it's kind of subtle, so I'm gonna zoom in. Makes my cheeks blow up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for sticking out through this whole video. If you have other requests or ideas for tutorials, please reach out in the comments or in my Discord server or on Twitter or whatever. I want to do a tutorial video once a week or once every other week. I want to go crazy with tutorials. I want to do like ArcKit and Blender and Unity, like VSF animations, the VSF avatar format. I want to go all out. So if there's anything that wasn't clear, you can ask in the comments, and you can also ask in the content creation channel of my Discord server. There is a lot of helpful people in there, including myself, and we'll do our best to kind of help and give advice or hopefully clear up anything that it wasn't super clear already. And yeah, just thank you guys for supporting me. If you really, really like this, then, like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you love it, I have a Patreon, and I also stream weekdays, Monday through Thursday. And sometimes on my streams, I do Blender stuff, Unity stuff, Substance stuff, or we just play games and we have meetups and VRchat. We're kind of all over the place. But yeah, that is everything. I think I covered it all. Love you guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.